How's it going, folks? And welcome back to Football Manager in the Future. We've gone forward 100 years. We've gone forward 200 years. Today, we are 500 years in the future. We really are far away from reality. I can't wait to show you what Football Manager has thrown up. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Today's video is brought to you by the Gigabyte G7 gaming laptop, powered by Intel. More info later in the video. So the year is 2521. Yeah, that is right. We're in the future. The population is still 7.8 billion. It's not changed. Football Manager doesn't actually do anything in terms of population development in save games. So maybe Football Manager's just predicting that overpopulation's never going to be an issue. Well, I think I'm reading too far into this. We're not going to mess around today because there is so much to cover. As always, there is a link at the top of the description to download this save game if you want to take a look at it yourself. We're going to start with the World Cup. Of course, we've got 300 years to recap here. We left things in 2221. That's the year it was. And since then, Belarus, who you might remember came second, have gone on to win the World Cup. Please, round of applause for Belarus at home. Give it up for them. In 22-26, they managed to win it. They beat Belgium in the final in Mexico. From there, I'm afraid to say, it's the usual suspects popping up. Spain, Germany, England, Argentina and Chile winning it. So a little bit of a break to the monotony there. Denmark, by the way, have gone on to be a very, very good little team. They've won a lot of stuff internationally, as you're going to come to see. Elsewhere, Chile have actually won it on a couple of occasions. So fair play to Chile. France had a period where they won 4 in a row, which is a pretty impressive feat in any World Cup. As I mentioned, Denmark just repeatedly popping up here and there alongside the likes of Italy, England, Portugal, Germany, Spain, the usual suspects. And in 2494, Wales managed to win the competition over in Uruguay. So yeah, shout out to Wales. You are the odd one out really in the last few hundred years. Besides that, it's been all the big dogs doing well. Over in the FIFA Nations rankings, well, Germany are the biggest team. Then it's England, then it's France, then it's Portugal. Wales are doing well up in 8th. Bolivia in 10th standout, but not quite as much as Tanzania in 13th. I don't know how they've got to 13th. If we just look at their best player, it's David Musa, who, I mean, to be fair to him, he's 34 years old. He's not a bad goalkeeper by any means. He started his career playing in Spain. But I don't know why they're as high as they are in the world. Yeah, it's not like they've done crazily in any kind of major international tournament. I suppose the African Cup of Nations, they made it to the final in. That's quite an achievement. Maybe I'm playing them down a little bit. But just in general, it's not like they've made it to a load of World Cups or anything or been super successful in anything other than the African Cup of Nations. So, yeah, a little bit weird, but I'm not going to question it. They are in 13th. Indonesia in 15th seems a little bit odd. And Haiti, still going strong. Of course, they were around a similar position last time out. I know what you're wondering, Jack. Where are Botswana? Remember, they were down at the very bottom once upon a time. Well, I'm pleased to report they've climbed up to 186th. So shout out to Botswana. Seychelles as well have climbed off the bottom of the table. And the current lowest nation is Burundi. If you're wondering who Burundi's best player is, it's this guy, Nzeyimana, who actually doesn't look that bad, but yeah, he's not played for them. Are they? Okay, for some reason he's just not played for. You know what? I'm not going to question it. They're bottom of the world rankings. Their manager's probably incompetent. Maybe they've actually got a really sick team. Now, I talked a little bit about it last time, but world reputation and the reputation of football clubs just goes a little bit bonkers in the future. The club with the highest reputation in the world, according to the game, in this, well, year, 500 years down the line, is Celtic. So, yeah, congratulations, Celtic. You're top of the world reputation rankings alongside Nîmes, Marseille, Stuttgart, Kedah of Malaysia, who you might remember we talked about 200 years in the future, and Niigata Unicorn, who are a team from Japan that play in Singapore. They've got a load of Japanese regens in their ranks. You might be wondering, are they any good? No. Dai Sato is perhaps the best of the bunch. 52 caps he's got for Japan. He's not great. They've also got Tachibana here, who's their second highest earning player. He's got a couple of caps. But yeah, quite why they've been given 5-star reputation, I don't really know. You'll also notice that the 2001 Chinese national youth team which is just made up of loanees of the top Chinese clubs, is the highest reputation Chinese club and one of the highest rep clubs in the world. Yeah, Football Manager just has weird stuff happen 500 years in the future. You're not meant to play this far ahead. I will just scroll through the rest of this team list as well, just so you can get an idea for some of the teams that have climbed particularly highly. I feel like it loses some relevancy when Brazilian national third division teams and also teams playing in the Hungarian second division have all got 4.5-star reputation. Yeah, something's gone wrong here. I don't know what's gone wrong or how it's gone wrong. Loads of teams have high rep, and frankly, it makes absolutely no sense. So you might be wondering, with all the weird club reputation stuff going on, how's the Club World Cup played out over the last 300 years? Of course, when we left things, Olympia had actually just won. I say just won, it wasn't just at all, but they had managed to win one of the Club World Cups. The rest had all been won by European teams. Well, as you're going to see as we scroll up here, the status quo changes, and Olympia and Kedah just keep doing really well. Now, the teams in Paraguay, the teams in Malaysia don't have real players. The game just kind of generates the grade virtual players. That's what Sports Interactive call them. Virtual players are just awarded to teams that don't have players. And because their reputation has gone really, really high, they just enter a point where they start dominating all the competitions. You can see Emelec from Ecuador do well. Cerro Porteño, who I believe are another Paraguayan team, they do well. Al Ain, who play, I think, in the UAE, they ended up finishing runner-up one year. Yeah, things just get weirder and weirder and weirder. And whilst there is the odd team, the likes of Burton, Celtic, PSG, who are able to break through, what seems to have happened is Europe is just not very good on the international stage anymore. The most recent winner was another team from Paraguay, and Kedah from Malaysia just continuing to do things. Johor DT, Darul Takzim, also did very well from Malaysia. They've won it on a few occasions. Yeah, it's all got very weird, really, outside of the playable leagues. So let's instead return to the leagues that we have loaded, starting the English Premier Division, where Newcastle are still the best team. I feel like every time we've come back, they've been really, really good. Just looking at the teams in the top division, you can see them here. I'll have a quick flick through before we look at the past winners of teams in the Championship and such. Luton, by the way, just promoted back to the Premier League. Not noticed any super weird teams here. I guess there's teams you wouldn't expect necessarily to be in the Championship, but given we're 500 years in the future, similar to what I said last video, I was hoping there'd be some proper weird team that I've just never heard of, who's got loads and loads of promotions. It's not really happened. Woking are in League One. That might be one of the better achievements. Over in League Two, Leicester won in the playoffs. Also, Leeds are down here, not doing too well. Towards the bottom of things, Darlington and York have been relegated. And Boston United, of course, a team that I grew up watching a lot because I'm from Boston originally, in 16th. Finally, they've got out the Vanarama National North League. It only took 500 years. So well done, Boston. Now, when it comes to past winners over the last 500 years, it's the teams that we saw being dominant before, being dominant again. The likes of Newcastle, Burton have cropped up continuously. Of course, in Football Manager, they start with quite good facilities because they share facilities with England in real life. So I imagine that plays a factor. Elsewhere, West Ham, who performed well, have done good. Burnley have popped up. Arsenal, Man City, Sheffield Wednesday, a newer name that we've not really seen too much. They had a good spell in the 2400s, it would appear. In fact, they had a really good spell where they were really, really competitive for an extended period of time from the looks of things. Manchester United winning the league in 24-17, and that's the first time they've won it in quite a long time. And as we scroll through here, Huddersfield pop up again. They were particularly successful in the first 100 years. In the years since, they've continued to do well. But besides that, it's been very, very similar teams throughout. Good to see Liverpool return to be back on top in the 2260s. Before that, of course, it was Brighton looking good, Arsenal. And we've kind of just come full circle. We've gone from a period where Brighton were doing very good, Liverpool were doing very good, Tottenham were doing good. And all that's really happened is, as it feels like has been the case whenever I've checked in, Newcastle are just towards the top of the table and doing really well. So, yeah, congratulations, Newcastle. I mean, do they have a tycoon owner? I want to look at their history of owners over the last 500. Okay, I'm never going to be able to keep track of this, am I? What was their most recent takeover? It was a promotion from within. Before that, they were floated on the stock exchange. They did have a Tycoon takeover in 2488. It seems like teams that have Tycoon takeovers are very likely to get them again in FM22, which I suppose makes sense to an extent. They have continued to do pretty bloody well, all in all. As mentioned, today's video is sponsored by Intel and Aorus and the Gigabyte G7 gaming laptop. It's powered by an Intel 11th gen processor, giving you the power and battery life to create and play on the go. Its 240Hz screen makes it perfect for gaming, and with expandable storage, an SD card reader, and Bluetooth, it's the ultimate creativity machine. The machine is lightweight, has a huge display, and fits perfectly in my backpack, making it easy to carry around with me without too much hassle. It can load up a ton of leagues in Football Manager, play the game in 3D flawlessly, and it's perfect for playing Football Manager just about anywhere. You can check out the laptop itself, there's a link in the description. Now, you might have noticed the Premier League, in terms of previous reputation, has dropped down occasionally in recent years. They've not been swapping places with League 1. I imagine this again goes down to the weird, glitchy reputation. You might notice here the Icelandic Premier Division, the Hungarian Division, and Russian Premier League have all now just appeared as top leagues. Of course, I've not got them loaded. We can't look into them. They are just a byproduct of going into the future. But let's look at League 1, shall we? Where PSG are still towards the top, but not right at the very top. The team at the top is Nîmes, who have won it the last couple of years. I say that, not realising the fact they've won it a lot of years before that too. If we just go back to kind of where we left things, which was obviously 22-21, where PSG had won it. PSG, still very, very good. Clermont-Foot, Nice having their own eras of quite good spell. I mean, what is this by Nice? Oh my word. Nice had a period of like half a decade where they were absolutely sensational. Then Grenoble came through. PSG just always seemed to return to the top. Troyes had a really good run in the 2300s. Marseille, Guingamp, Lorient winning it on a couple of occasions. Lens winning it in 24-98 is nice to see. And to be fair, PSG have not won the league in the past, 37, 38 years. So that's nice to see as a bit of a change of pace. But yeah, Ligue 1 still looks like a league where PSG are one of the better clubs. They are second in the reputations. As for the Bundesliga, let's take a peek here, where Bayer Leverkusen have just been relegated. Dortmund are down in 13th. Bayern Munich, though, still towards the top, and Stuttgart have just won the league. You can see here, Stuttgart, Bayern, Augsburg, who, of course, we noticed were doing quite well in terms of world reputation, are right up there. As we scroll through this list, Augsburg have won the league a lot from the looks of things here. Wow. It's just Augsburg, Bayer, Stuttgart, and Bayern Munich just kind of on a rota. But Augsburg, for the last however many years, have been very, very bloody good. Prior to that, Stuttgart did have a pretty good spell, as did Wolfsburg, actually, to be fair to them. I now need to look. How many times have Augsburg won the competition? So they've won the Bundesliga 119 times, and they've also won the Champions League on 15 occasions. We'll come to that in due course, but yeah, I'm now beginning to realise why Augsburg was so high in the club world reputations list. Okay, Serie A, we're going to click on you. I just don't want to see Juve at the top. Is anyone else bored of the zebra? I'm bored of the zebra. Has the status quo changed? Not really. I mean, this is disappointing. For all the other leagues that have had a ton of changes, it'd be safe to say that in the last 300 years, Juve have continued to be very good. Previously, just as a reminder, it was kind of Juve, Inter, Fiorentina and AC Milan. They were rotating league titles, with Atalanta popping up occasionally. Nice to see Benevento win it in the 2300s. So shout out to them. But yeah, I mean, it's just Juve. It's just Juve, basically. I mean, how many years have they won it? Let's just have a look. We want to look at competitions here. They've won Serie A 339 times. What I would say is they have had it a bit rougher as of late, where Inter, of course, have won it a few years in the bounce. It's kind of the first time in all of this simulation where a team has managed to really end Juve's dominance for an extended period. So shout out to Inter, you're doing the Lord's work. I've just noticed here the Portuguese Premier Division has overtaken Spain. I mean, it's still behind Scotland and it's now down in 10th, but the Portuguese Premier Division has continued to climb, and Estrela da Amadora have won the league. Porto, by the way, finishing 7th. Where's Benfica? Oh, Benfica in 10th. I was worried that we'd lost Benfica for a second there. If we just have a look at the past winners, Braga, TND, and Estrela da Amadora just doing their thing. BSAD also have won the league on a few occasions. Lecciones? Again, like I said last time, should just get my sister to record this part of these videos, really. Have done well. I think I actually noticed that they'd won a Club World Cup, which is cool to see. In fact, if we look at the competition here, did they win a Club World Cup? They did. They won it in 24-65. They've also won some Champions Leagues. We'll come on to that shortly. But yeah, it is the similar kind of bunch of teams winning it. There was a period, you might remember, where we checked up on this division, and there was like real variety in their winners, and it was kind of all over the place, and it was anyone's tournament to win. I think it was back around here. There was like a 10-year period with loads of different winners in the 2100s, 100 years in. Santa Clara, by the way, had a pretty crazy run that's not really been matched by anyone, where they won the league just loads and loads of years in a row. So give them some credit for this dominance during the 2200s. They were kind of the big team where we left things last video. They've continued that trend there. Mafra? I don't remember Mafra. I feel like I've said their name before now. I've said it aloud. Have they won the Premier League? They have. They've won it on 6 occasions. They also won the Europa League. So shout out to Mafra. If you're a Mafra fan, you've got lots to look forward to if you want to put yourself in a cryo chamber and wait a few centuries. Over in Spain, you'd be mistaken for thinking we've just not gone forward. The top 3 is Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atleti, the top 2 teams running away with things. In terms of past winners, I mean, I just feel a little bit sad, to be honest, looking at this. If we just go all the way back to 22-21, where we left things, Real Madrid were doing quite well. They've continued to do quite well. We've seen Sociedad pop up here and there. They had a few good spells in the first kind of couple hundred years. Since then, though, it's been Real Madrid, Sociedad. Occasionally, Betis have popped up, to be fair, but it's just the usual suspects year on year on year. Recently, it's been the Battle of Madrids, it would appear. That was until Barcelona had a good little spell, which has now come to an abrupt end with Real Madrid winning the last 2 La Liga titles. So over in the Champions League, what's happened, I hear you ask? Well, Santa Clara have done very well. They managed to win it. As we scroll up through here, PSG, Brighton, Arsenal just always seem to stick around in these videos. Brighton have been a very, very good team in this simulation. Chelsea, to be fair, have had some good success. They didn't win that many Premier Leagues. They've won a few Champions Leagues, though. Celtic won a Champions League as well in 22-90. Tottenham, 4 in a row. That is a really impressive achievement in the Champions League. Nice also won 5 out of 7 during the early 2300s. Feels weird when I say the dates like that. We have a weird winner here that I've never heard of. Tabor Cezana are a Slovenian team who actually look like they have real players as opposed to like the virtual players. I mean, I want to know who is their key man. I want to find out more about this team. It's Kozar. He's not very good, is he, Kozar? How the hell did they win the Champions League in 23-33? I would love to know. Sadly, we may never know. But they did win it. They beat Real Madrid in the final. Shout out to them for being probably the oddest team to have major, major success in Europe. Sheffield Wednesday won 4 out of 5. There's another team here that I don't recognise. Another Slovenian team, Domžale, have done really, really well. They managed to win a Champions League too. It's nice to see that after a few hundred years, we have got some weirder winners. Celtic did really well in the 2400s. Gungam and Augsburg also popping up here, slightly kind of lesser-known clubs. Legiones, the team from Portugal that we looked at before, obviously we know that they've won some Champions Leagues. You can see those Champions Leagues they won here. Auxerre had a good little spell where they won a couple. In fact, I say they won a couple. They've won a few Champions Leagues over the years. I want to have a look at this. They've won 4 of them. The years they won it in 24-65, 24-67, 24-80, and 24-84. Those are big numbers as we scroll up here. You can see, surprising actually to see teams able to win the Champions League consecutively. It does feel like there's been some really, really big teams be super successful. Interesting to note that 2 years ago, a team from Iceland won the competition. Now, they have got some real kind of regens in their ranks. Their best player is apparently Shang Lian Shen, who's actually in... Wow. Well, okay. You know what? I was going to ridicule them for not having any real players and it being to do with the reputation causing them to massively overperform, which, to be fair, they have got some good kind of grayed out virtual players. But the guy that we've just seen there from China is actually ridiculous, who they managed to pick up. There's also Aslam here, who, okay, he's not quite as good. And Pepe Cruz. Okay, look, they have one superstar player who, if I was going to jump in this save game and start managing as a Premier League club, I'm looking to steal this man away from them. He looks absolutely mad. And yeah, shout out to Fjölnir. I don't know how to say that. I don't read Icelandic. They won the Champions League. It only took 500 years to do so. Over in the Europa League, I'm not going to look at things in quite the same level of detail just because it's 300 years. But as I have a scroll through, see if you can spot any weird teams. What I will say is, I'm definitely noticing some slightly odder teams there. Teams that I just don't recognise. So if you recognise any of these teams, there's far too many for me to go over, to be honest, that just seem weird. I mean, Inverness have won the Europa League. That really says it all. Rostov there, another team that I recognise. The team that we looked at before from Slovenia, Tabor Cezana, actually managed to win the Europa League as well as the Champions League. So fair play to them for doing that. They've actually won the Europa League twice, 100 years apart. We've not even seen the first time they won it yet. Obviously, Arsenal have kind of frequently featured in this competition. Ilves from Tampere in Finland popping up there. Nordsjælland as well. Feels like for a lot of the Nordic kind of countries, they've benefited quite well from this simulation and doing kind of particularly well all in all. But yeah, there's a whole host of teams here. Brighton just continually popping up, I've noticed. Brighton just seem to be everywhere. Brighton are massive in the future, it turns out. And Santa Clara did also manage to win it not that many years after they won the the Champions League, if I'm not mistaken. It'd be quite the achievement if they win the Premier League as a club from Portugal. Although I've just noticed they are now in the second division. And they were promoted from the third division in 2498. Of course, I've not got the lower leagues loaded, but they look like they've had a pretty big fall from grace looking at things there. That is sad to see. They must have been relegated at some point. And, well, one of the most dominant teams in all of this simulation. They won 76 Premier Leagues, 4 Champions Leagues, playing in the lower reaches of Portuguese football. Now, if I thought the Europa League was a concoction of teams that I'm just not going to recognise, the Conference League 2, I have absolutely zero hope with. But we will scroll through this list of teams like before. If you spot any teams who are weird and wonderful with crazy backstories, let me know. Because we've gone so far into the future here, the reputations have kind of gone all wonky from the looks of things. Teams are getting far too good virtual players through, which is causing them to cause some quite big upsets, and we're getting some particularly weird teams here. By the way, Fjölnir, the Icelandic team that won the Champions League, they won the Conference League like 200 years ago, so it was a long time in the making, that Champions League win for them. Manchester United having some good success. I say good success, they're winning Conference Leagues. That doesn't really count as good success, does it? I mean, really, what I'm noticing here is the lower kind of European competitions just don't have the same teams have the same spells of dominance. Of course, if a team continues to do well, they'll enter into the Champions League. So as a result of that, there's a bit more variety when it comes to the Conference League winners. But yeah, some pretty wild and wacky different nations and teams popping up here. Chelsea finishing runner-up on a few occasions. And yeah, I mean, what do you say? There's just loads of teams here I don't even recognise. I feel like I'm someone who knows an unreasonable amount of European football clubs just through Football Manager. I don't know half the teams I've just scrolled through here. In terms of the top players in the world in the distant future, we've got here Bokari Sawadogo. I mean, I'd call him the Doggo if he was my player. He is a very, very good left winger at 31, perhaps declined a little bit. He plays for Nîmes. Another player who plays for Nîmes is this guy, Ramiro Campintero, who is 27 years old, and he looks absolutely ridiculous. Kind of the perfect advanced forward. How much did Nîmes sign him for? 86 million. Of course, Nîmes have just won Liga. Did they have a tycoon takeover? Yeah, bet your bottom dollar they had a tycoon takeover. Of course they did. It was never in doubt. To be fair, he did actually withdraw his funding after a few years. So their more recent success is probably built on their own kind of, work. And, well, they've got two of the best players in the world. Newcastle, I've got Vasco Seco. Of course, Newcastle have been very, very good. Seco here, also very good. Playing for Portugal, who on the national stage have done absolutely superbly. He started in Portugal. He was signed by Daegu in South Korea for 54 million. How can they afford him for 54 million, Football Manager? What's happening in South Korea? How much money are they hoarding? I'm not going to ask too many questions. He moved back to Europe and to Germany a couple of years later, and then Newcastle have picked him up and made him into their star man. I have no doubt that if you dug through this save game deep enough, there would be some very, very weird transfer stuff going on with just odd fees paid. I know someone's going to ask, Jack, can you go to transfers and click on the leading transfers and show us all the top transfers? I tried doing that. The game froze for 20 minutes and then I left it. If you want to do it in your own time, load up the save game and then leave the game loading overnight, maybe eventually it will load up the leading transfers. I'm not patient enough to do that, sadly. So, yeah, apologies. Over in the Euros, by the way, things a little bit interesting with a few odd teams. I say odd teams. At this point, I've just accepted that Belarus are a titan of modern football. You can see in 22-40, they managed to win the Euros. They also won it again 16 years later. That time, it was a joint holding of the event between Holland and Belgium, where they beat Spain in the final. Elsewhere, Portugal and England have just been very, very good throughout. Denmark occasionally popping up with some good national team performances. I feel like every so often Denmark get through a good few regions and make the most of them. But generally speaking, the status quo in Europe hasn't changed that much. I talked about Denmark like it was infrequent. They've actually done very, very well over the years, Denmark. Give them some credit. Although more recently it has become the England, France and Portugal show. Yeah, really for the last almost century, it's been the same three nations winning everything, with Spain and, to be fair, Italy occasionally getting involved in between. But anyway, guys, I could go through this all day and night. 500 years is impossible to condense down into even 3 of these videos like I've tried to do over the last week. I do hope you've enjoyed each and every one of these videos. Little bit of news. I have got another save game where I'm continuing to go forward, but I have had to remove all the extra European leagues. So there is a simulation which I'm going to try and get to 1,000 years in the future with the top 4 English leagues, just so we can see how stuff continues to play out, because I think it's kind of interesting to look at. But that is going to take a little while longer to do. I've actually had a spare kind of old dud PC of mine simulating forward for over a month continuously. If you were wondering, how long does it take to get 500 years into the future on a good PC? The answer is 22 days and 17 hours, and it is only getting slower and getting slower quite quickly. So fingers crossed it's going to speed up a little bit. Fingers crossed I will be able to bring you a 1,000 years in the future video, but that is one you are going to have to wait for, I'm afraid to say. If you've enjoyed the video, as always, do drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We'll be back again with more Football Manager content very, very soon. And until then, it is me, Jack. I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.